Okay, I think that is working. Oh, there we go. Redirecting. There we go.
Yep.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the Express TC meeting for March 13th, 2024. We have an agenda which we've linked in the chat, and I think everybody who's here was here when it was linked, so that's good. To get started, just want to ask if anybody has off-agenda announcements or anything that they wanted to highlight.
I have a small announcement from my side. So for those who are watching this now and want to participate a little bit on security, the security working group of Express already has started already. There are some issues ongoing and some initiatives. So if anyone is interested on that, just check out on GitHub repositories, the one that is security BG working group, basically.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, looking forward to folks joining that. Okay, cool. If that's it, then we'll hop into the agenda, which is something from the security working group to get started. So Ulysses, if you want to talk through the goals and stuff with the threat model.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So there are, and right now, 3 different initiatives in the security working group. So one of them is going to start on the first week on the next month, which is related to the audit of the project. The second initiative that we are working on right now is the OpenSSF scorecard, which Inigo is leading right now, which is the issue number 2 in that repository. And for today, the idea is to discuss a little bit the threat model, which is the issue number 3. Let me share also the link on the chat, and there also you can find the context and the pull request. So basically, the idea of the threat model, just to give a little bit of overview for everybody, is to build a document that will help us to understand what are the limits or the play rules for the auditors and for the external pen testers, security researchers, and so on. So the idea is we should define what we can consider a vulnerability or not in the scope of Express. So for example, things that we don't want to consider as vulnerabilities for Express is you install Express project and you install a third-party middleware, and that middleware is vulnerable. That, for example, is the typical case of Express is not up to that. It's something related to the npm package that you install it. So these kind of scenarios, this can be from a very simple examples to very more complex examples. Also, we have to take in account a little bit that today there are more runtimes, so it's not just Node.js specific. We can talk a little bit also about the ban and other Dino and so on. And the idea as well is to see how comfortable we are. So there is a pull request already for the threat model, which is very similar to the Node.js one. Basically, it's just a copy paste / fork / modification from that one. Sorry, I think I put the same link for the same issue and not for the, okay. Sorry, is the pull request 5,000? Yeah,
Got it. Yep,
5,526.
yep, I put a link in the chat.
Oh, I still put in the wrong link. Yeah, I think my shortcut for copy pasting with my external keyboard is okay. Okay, you put it already. Sorry. Yeah, so there's a draft pull request made for that. I made some modification on the original one. There are some that is makes sense for us to start from that because basically already Node.js has an HTTP library which cover also some cases that we have. So there are some points that are on discussion, I think, but overall things that do have some kind of okay for initial proposal. Also important to notice that this is going to be like starting point, so maybe we iterate over. The idea is also to have this document review in the audit as one of the first steps. So there's going to be like probably a lot of changes in the future. Yeah, go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, I had two questions, but I think you addressed maybe one of them right here. But I'll ask it at the end. So the first question was the target audience of this doc might be at odds with the feedback that is being given in the PR as it is right now, right? So, for example, the one that I think Jordan originally commented on, Marco's commented. Where was it here? Okay, and then Chris and myself, yeah. So we were sort of going back and forth, and it feels like Jordan's comment to me. This is my interpretation of the questioning here is more like if I'm an end user and I read that, this is confusing. But I'm not
Mhm.
sure that necessarily means security researchers who are reading this, who are using it to decide whether or not something is CV, would consider that confusing. Does that make sense? Like why I think maybe there's some confusion here. Like, I don't know if we need to tailor the language such that our average user could read this and go, "Oh, I see what they're saying there." Because
Yep.
they would see this as let's see what the exact wording is: the code it executes comprising JavaScript and native code, even if dynamically loaded, such as dependencies installed from npm or similar repositories, and that's under the trusted thing. And it's like, as an end
Yep.
user, they might be like, "Wait, you trust that?" Like,
Yep. Yep.
and so like we like I if we think that wording is correct to a security researcher, then we should probably like put a section at the top that says, you know, the goal of this document is not necessarily to be for end users of Express. It's for, security groups and people who in that space to understand the threat model, and they might understand
Yep.
these terminology in a slightly different framing than like an end user would. Anyway,
Yep.
yeah, go.
That's a
Oh,
very fair
sorry.
point. I will say like in the past, in the experience that we have with Node.js on the time was like we first create the threat model and then we find similar issues, if I remember well, with end users, user land reading about it and think like it might be a little bit tricky. So then we end up also building like a best practices based on top of the threat model. So it's like if you're a user land, this is what you should understand from the previous threat model. Like you should take care of the code. If you have some code writing or files included, then we trust them and so on. So we provide more examples and CVs specific and so on. But yeah, that was super extensive for, security researchers because become like too obvious or too long, so nobody read them. Also, another option for now, maybe could be like put the typical too long to read section. So basically we can just put some basic bullets. So like if you're a basic, I mean, if you're an end user, those are the basic, like we trust this and not and not and not with some very simple wording. I think that can be a good option.
I like that.
Yeah, I think Adam was first.
Yep.
Yeah, I think what I hope to get out of the audit is a reformatting of the document as well, frankly, so that it's a little bit more straightforward and clear. Most threat models, there's like a very discrete, like we can, it can be written more clearly as a threat model, and that's what I expect that deliverable to look like. So, in
Hmm.
terms of phrasing right now, I don't know if it's worth focusing on that as much versus just making sure it's technically accurate as we understand it at the moment. And then once the audit folks have a crack at it, I expect it to um, get a good polish up and be a little bit easier to read because the threat model shouldn't be that challenging to read um, if done well. But obviously, at some point, you have to get into the nuanced technical details, and you can't avoid that, right? Like at some point, you have to just get to the nitty gritty of it. Um, but to everybody's point, users who usually care and are looking for these things are able to consume them, and those that are not, Ulysses, you actually offered the suggestion that I was going to offer as well. Is a counter to the threat model is our direct references to a best practices guide to make sure, like you said, to make sure that folks know, like, all right, there's this thing, but if you care about mitigating it, here's our approach, or there,
Hmm.
look over here for details on how to handle this situation. So I think you guys are doing great on that. I think and I'm looking forward to the auditors going really deep on this. That's why I want to prepare. I think it's really good for you guys to prepare in advance so that once you're in the room with like the real folks, you
Yeah.
have like you already have thought about this a little bit and like have framed it and slept on it.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Adam. So I think should be fine. Yeah, as we expect from them a little bit of working on the rewarding and make it more simple and so on. My question here, more or less for the group, is like, are we happy with this version enough to be for a couple of weeks there until we iterate over, or should we leave it as a PR send them to them in the version that it is, and waiting for the final wording and so on, an agreement with them, and then we merge them back to the main branch, and that is the final version. How do you feel about it? And I pass to Chris.
Well, I was gonna say this is leading into my other question, but Chris, do you want to reply there before we talk about what next steps are?
Yeah, at this point I have multiple things to comment on. So yeah, I guess first of all, yeah, I totally agree with everything that Rudd just said. And just, this is going to be a living and breathing thing. Ulysses said a word that I did not really like just now, which is final version. There is no final version. As soon as it goes out, it's already going to be out of date.
Yeah.
Needs to be continually updated. So yeah, let's not look at this like a big bang. This is going to be incrementally improved upon. Anything now that's controversial, and I use controversial loosely, right? Not controversial,
Yeah.
but something that's up for like, oh, is this worded strangely, or does this make a lot of sense? It's easier just to remove it, and then you can create an issue for it to re-add it. So like, for example, like the prototype pollution thing, I agree with the commenter. It is confusing. Like, what are we talking about here? Maybe just strip that out for now, and you can always add it back in. I do think that prototype pollution should be part of the threat model.
Yep.
And not excluded. And then, since the Jordan's comment was brought up, he's not here, and I don't want to put words into his mouth, but a lot of Jordan's background, his strong background in the language design. So when it comes to trust, when he's talking about trusting arbitrary plugins and you can defend against it, he might be talking about more lower level language things rather than, a middleware that modifies request and response headers, for example. So that might have been where he's coming from there, in which case he's right. This can be defended against, and that should be part of the threat model as well. Anytime this should be part of any library author's threat model, right? Is potentially having other callers in the stack that are not playing nicely with other things, and guarding against that, and guarding against your own private APIs and all of this type of thing. So I'll leave it at that.
Cool. Yeah, I think this leads right into the next steps so that was going to be my second follow-up question was, what do we think next steps are? So I have an opinion, I'll share, and then maybe folks disagree. I think we should merge something very quickly, and I think we should be liberal to merge things with docs. I think we should, like, they're living documents. They're not, final. That said, ones that go in the Express repo should not be drafts if we can help it. So I propose, and I think this is the same thing with what I've been proposing with all these other docs. We got to get them out of the Express repo. We got to move them into a place where they can live and they can be very quickly iterated on without any worry of end users being confused, right? So if it can go somewhere else, it should. And I think in this case, this should be re-raised or whatever, moved directly over to the working group. And then we should add language to replace some of the stuff that is in the Express repo with something that says, we are in active process we have a working group that owns this domain. Here's where you can find more information. And then that language in the Express repo should not change very often. Has less churn in the repo, less things to review, less PRs that ping. I don't know if the number there is accurate anymore, but it used to be like 40,000, people watching. I don't know how much they're watching totally, but it's not 40,000. It's 1,700 people watching the repo. Like, not every single, person cares about the threat model and little tweaks and stuff. So like, it would be good to just do a little bit of compartmentalization there. So, and the same thing goes with those other ones. We've got like open PRs. The more open PRs we open against the Express repo, the harder it is to like move the docs over. So like, we've got some versions of some of the stuff in admin now. If that's where we're going with things, then like the contributing and all those should also move over. And so like, to me, I think like close this, personally, what I would say is close this one out, but reopen it and land it like almost immediately in the working group, and then do that sort of iteration.
I agree with everything you said. I'll just note that this particular doc is not just like the docs. This is the security policy for the repo, which probably also belongs in a .github repo, which is a separate conversation. But in terms of like the spirit of like doing the working incrementalization and pull requests and reviews and all that stuff in a separate repo totally makes sense.
Yeah, which actually we should have maybe put that on the agenda because it's come up like 3 or 4 times about like, because we have the admin repo now, we have a .github repo, we have a discussions repo. It is ambiguous what should go where and why. So like if there is and then we asked the foundation folks, hey, do you have a recommendation? Do these kind of docs need to live in every, John, is that your hand?
Yeah. So I was the one raising that issue with the foundation and with Toby and other people, and it also started a thread on the OpenJS Foundation because there is no official recommendation or at least documentation on recommendation where to put it. The main idea that people would agree is to put that in a .github, like you said, Chris, at least for the files that are automatically shared. So it's security, code of conduct, and there is a third or fourth one.
Yeah, they're called community health files is what they're called. And so all of those are, yes, those are no brainers, no ambiguity there. Those belong in .github. You cannot have a community health file for the license for reasons that are probably fairly obvious. But I don't remember what the other one. Yes, but you mentioned code of conduct, security, contributing.
Contributing.md, and I think there is a fourth one, but the main question here about that is for this one, yes, no brainer. .github, it's done. I can open the PR later today or tomorrow. That's good. And then I would just copy paste the file, and then we can iterate if we want to change the content. First question, I think I will open the same PR for other projects, other organization part of the GitHub, like Pillar.js and JS It's the same issue because there is no way that you cannot share the one. It's only linked to the organization. You cannot spread that. So I will open the same PR for everything. So at least every project will have the same stuff and we can update them, and we'll try to find a good way to replicate, to synchronize that. If we update one on Express, the other one are also updated. I will try to find a way. What do we do?
You want something, NPM has a tool for that, just to call that out. So we don't need to write anything if we don't want to. They have a thing that does this across all the NPM things that it's generic enough that we could adapt it to our use case if we need to.
If you have your name of the link of the stuff, I can try it.
I'll find it out, or we might have to find it for somebody. I can't, it's like, it will find it. Yeah.
I can ping Luke or something like that. Someone. Yeah. So this is the first point. And I will open separate PR and close the current one. What do we do? And do we want to discuss today or another day on the other files that are not automatically replicated to know if we want to put them into the admin repo or discussion or governance or whatever the name? That's the main topic there. We can do it for the next time, like in a week, like. But if someone have a big feedback on that, would be great.
Ulysses?
Oh, I will go fast. Yeah, if we move the security MD file to the .github repo, it will shown as a security policy for all the projects that belong to that organization. So that cover also libraries like body parser and things like that. So maybe we should also put some notes regarding libraries because it might be different. So we can do something like this is for Express, this is the generic and this is for Express specifically. So we can cover other things and talk about libraries there. That's my only suggestion.
Yeah, it feels like this would be a good reason to first do it in the security working group and land a few things there and make sure that we address those issues before we start showing it on the other ones, right? Just in case anybody does reports in the meantime. And if we have like a draft and we're trying to be iterative in the GitHub repo, then we're being iterative across all the repos. And I think that like blast radius might be a little bit larger than we want. Right?
I was going to suggest to take the previous one, the current existing one that is not merged, that is already merged, sorry, part of the repo. And then, so it doesn't move, and at least it will add a security file to every other repository that currently most of the projects don't have one, even if it's not perfect. And then we'll need maybe to discuss about, do we want to use this standardized one and add section, or this only apply to Express repository and everything else apply to all the library? Or do we want to only, like Chris said, if we add a security.md file in Express, it will override the one that is coming from .github. So that's also a way to operate.
Yeah, probably not something we're going to figure out now or even need to, but ideally you just have the one file to rule them all, and that can apply to everything. If in the absence of that, if you are going to have specific to repo, they should all probably be deferential to the one that has everything, so you're not duplicating content. And if there's something that's truly specific just to that one thing, you only include that content. That would be the preference.
Yeah. Yeah, like this policy only extend, and you put the link to the normal policy. And for this specific use case, new stuff. Okay.
Okay, I think we have agreement on that and good next steps. So let's maybe move on, keep things going. Cool. So we'll move on to the LTS strategy thing. So let's see. So the idea here is we need to write a doc. So this one does not yet have a PR. There was a lot of discussion, and I can't remember if somebody opened a PR. So yeah, let me put the link in the chat.
Yeah, I think there might be some PR from John, if I remember well.
Yeah, there is. Here it is.
Yeah.
So I think only one of the PR that is linked to this one would be first, which LTS version from Node do we want to support? Because it will change everything.
Well, so this one we merged into the discussions repo. So that's not just, so it covers more than just, wait, are you talking about something different? Sorry, just making sure I understand the comment. Because the one I just linked here.
Okay, wait, let me check this one. No, okay, no, this one is good for the LTS strategy. Let me check it. Okay, no, should be good.
Okay. It's not, I don't think it's complete. I think we just said, let's do the same kind of thing, merge early, and then we can start handling additions. But this one has the same suffering from the same problem as I opened it against the discussions repo. So I need to move it somewhere. Do we want to move that? Is that to the .github? Or do we want to?
So it depends. It won't be shared because it's not one of the else file. So the main question here again is, do we want to use .github as almost a governance repository or not? Basically, that's the only question. If we say yes, we can put everything in that. I'm not seeing other specific case for the .github, like we don't need to have a user page or stuff like that. So we don't really care. So we can use it as a governance repository. That's all good.
Chris?
Yeah, no, sorry. I was going to, I mean, if folks want to do that's fine. I don't think it's problematic. I was just going to suggest only use the .github repo for what it's like, the specialty case of the things that it's meant to handle, and everything else do outside of it. Mainly because it kind of loses semantic meaning, because you have to remember, okay, what's the .github repo for? It's for this category of stuff, but not this category of stuff, because you can't name the repo something else. I mean, you can obviously describe it. I don't think it's a huge deal one way or the other, but I would expect to not find extra things in the .github repo other than just the straight the community health files, and another file that's important. I don't know if there's any content, I should check, but the README of the .github repo is also what shows up if you're just looking at the org in GitHub. That's kind of like the org landing page. So that's an important role that it plays too. But I don't think it's a huge deal if you include a bunch of other governance stuff in there. It's not like a hill anybody's going to die on. But I would probably favor to not just have that be the dumping ground for all of this other content.
I definitely agree with that. Let's just, to keep things moving fast, let me just field a proposal and see if people agree. Let's make the admin repo the official governance repo. Let's make the .github repo strictly about what GitHub features support and those things. And then we will keep the discussions repo, partly because of the history, because there is a ton of discussions in history that have happened in there. But we will not do what I did here, which is put policy docs in there. So policy docs go in the admin. So I'll move that over and we'll keep it strictly for the discussions, which was its original purpose. Okay, I'm seeing lots of thumbs ups and claps and stuff. So if everybody's good with that, let's just call that the direction. And then we can shuffle all. I mean, there's like probably a to-do list of things here. As we mentioned, we got to delete docs from certain repos and stuff. But we can handle that offline. Okay, everybody's good there. So that's the doc itself. Do we want to talk about the policy and the actual content that we've been discussing in there? I think that's probably pretty important. So let's see, what do we have as unresolved? We have, I'm just trying to get down to the bottom here a little bit. There's a long thread. Does anybody have any particular concerns that they remember from this that we need to talk about in person, or could we make the next steps just like we move the doc and then we just iteratively deal with it on a like topic by topic? Because again, like, I mean, it's got hundreds of.
Yeah, I think
45
maybe most of this will be related to the minimal Node.js versions that we support. So just for everybody who's watching this, so no, Express 4 is supporting from 0.10, if I remember well, up to current version. That's expected as soon as we keep 4 going, and that's expected. If we jump to the 5, there is a discussion going on which is going to be the minimum version supported, which is based on the dependencies that we have. The idea is to keep the closest to 0.10 as possible. I mean, obviously it's going to be 4, 6, or 10, or whatever, based on the dependencies. And from the 6 on, we have more freedom to decide. How we decide that, it's going to be very related on why it's going to be the future as well. So for example, it's like, I think in the document, the most important point was like, it's like 2 versions behind or 1 version behind the minor one of Node.js or something like that. So we can kind of coordinate a little bit the releases, I mean, the major releases from us with the major releases for Node.js, for the odd ones and so on. So that way it makes predictable. But overall, it's going to be something very predictable and easy to follow up and stable policy, more or less. That's the global idea. So we're not going to be super crazy with dropping support, but yeah, that's, I think, overall the major problem regarding the releases with Node.
Jean?
Yeah, I was just going to add like some quick information. As of yesterday, I think I was listening to, I think it was a CPC working group or the meeting like from the OpenJS Foundation and Node.js. I think the Node.js version that is the most downloaded today is Node 16, and I think the number is close to 1 billion download a month, or I don't remember the exact value, whereas it's Node.js 18 that is the current LTS is only half this number. So we can't definitely release Express 5 as not supporting Express 16, even if it's deprecated, not maintenance. And yeah, okay, Chris, I don't remember if they were talking about 20 or 18. I do have a big doubt, yeah, but it's close. Anyway, it was like deprecated version. I think we also have an issue with the current version. Express 5 was targeted to support Express Node.js 6 and above. I think 4 or 6. I don't remember.
It was 4, if I remember
Okay.
correctly. There was a discussion back a few years ago of making it 6, but I think we should be strongly considering a slightly more aggressive cut if we can. But we have to look at what that takes. Yeah.
Yeah. So like even if we support up to 4 or 6 or any number, and I agree with you, we need to be more aggressive on that. We can say, oh, it may be working and we don't want to rewrite Express 5 and remove everything that don't need to be removed. But say we can only guarantee up to this level, let's say Express 14 or 16, or I don't get the number, but also because it's bringing a lot of strain on top of maintainer to support Express 4 or something. And also some modules that are also part of, or at least closely related to the Express ecosystem. And I'm speaking about debug and some other modules that are handled by Blake and other people in the community already removed. And the latest version does not support Express 4, 6. And I think most of them removed on the latest versions. Everything that is below 12 or 14, something closer to that. But I think from memory it's 14 because it's a change of from ICU. And there is an open pull request with a discussion, and Blake added some comment on the admin repo about which version we want to support. But like today, if Node.js and even you, Chris, Fred, and everyone on the security point of view, I guess no one would be keen to support. Like, yeah, let's go to use Express 6 in production on a public server. Maybe we should try to follow that and say, let's keep it at least nice and kill a lot of version.
Yeah, so I think we've got a fair number of competing priorities here, and we need to figure out which order we should address them in. So there is no strong security. I was about to phrase that fairly poorly. If we drop all the way up to current nodes, we are actually making security worse for the end users. They cannot upgrade straight from that version that they were running on to the latest. It will not work. It will be massive lifts. It will excommunicate them. They will just not upgrade, right? They're already in that case. So like we should definitely not make it harder for people to do that. I think we want to ease it. So there's that. Then there's the maintenance aspect. So there's the blocking of node core API changes. There's performance improvements that can't happen because we support the older versions. There's folks like Blake and the maintenance of path to regex, where he's I think 6 major versions ahead these days, and he just supports the O.X range explicitly for Express 4. Those things are important. But I think, and this is what we were talking about in the thread, that we need to take a slow and steady approach to get this to a really great place. And so my thought would be that we cut Express 5 nearly as close to what it is in the PR that sits there today, which fully supports Node 4. And then at the same time, we publish our LTS strategy doc, whatever that says, which would include a schedule, like a hard schedule with dates and everything, not, wishy-washy language, like commit to some dates and say, we plan to support Express 4 until the end of 2024. And by support, we mean security updates. This is what I think there's language in the doc. I don't want to rehash what's in the doc. But it's not features. It is security updates and bug fixes to 2024. We would then drop Express 4, and Express 5 support would start from the day we can release it, which, this is the next item on the agenda, so we'll get to that, to, a extended period out. And so the idea there is we're giving people a bit more breathing room. We would start doing the media campaign, right? Like we're going to have blog posts, and we're going to have the, docs work that Rand wants to, has a issue about. Like there's a bunch of things we're going to have to get into place for that. And that push should help us set the stage for 6 being a more standardized release process like we talked about. That's kind of where I think people are in the discussion. I think we never landed on like a concrete agreement there. And I think there's a little bit of a chicken and an egg problem, because until we say we have all the things landed for Express 5, we can't really set dates because we don't want to set dates that we then couldn't keep, right? So we kind of have to resolve when are we going to cut the 5 release as a part of this. So I just want to like call that out. But I think if we're generally good on this, like as a holistic thing, I think we move the doc over and we start landing some little iterative points. But that would be like work we do on the side while we're trying to get the 5 release out. And then the key decision we have to make for 5 is, do we keep it at 6? Do we keep the code the same, which runs in 6, but then say we actually only support here being tested and for the lifetime of, Express 5 support a certain higher node version? Like there's a few options there. I think that is difficult to do without just, it ending up just being like we just would be immediately dropping, 6 because we would just take one PR. That's all it takes to, and if we're not testing it, it is very easy to break. So like, to me, I think that's pretty risky, but I think people were pushing for that because they really want us to make progress, right? Like, and progress there is, I want to put it in air quotes a little bit, a nebulous term. They just mean force people to upgrade. And it's like, well, that's not how it works. So we need to just make sure we have a little bit of that eye to keeping the balance, I think. So Jean, I think you're next.
So I was just going sharing my screen just for 5 seconds here. This is a current download number of Express. We can see that other than the release we did 2 weeks ago, the main one, and it's normal, it was the previous one. Main issue with that is there is 3.6 million, which is something close to 15%, I guess, where people didn't run a basic NPM update on their script, and they still run a CI with that. And for 4.17.1, you can update to 4.17.3 or 4.18.2 without any breaking change. There wasn't any breaking change. So I do agree with you that we need to take care and cater a bit the community and everyone. My main issue is on the plan here, like you said, we basically give them 6 months to move out on something they are using for the past 10 years or more than 10 years. While at the same time saying, oh, we will open a V5 that will be quick and the best experience will be the next one. And I'm not sure it's really the best solution for the community. You will have people after 6 months of using Express 5, when we'll just even say a plan for Express Caesar will jump on us and, oh, but we expect you to maintain it at least 2-3 years or more. Whereas if we cut that to, we know it's a big change, but technically you shouldn't be running Express in 4 in production anymore. And I guess we could ask the number from the OpenJS Foundation, how many download, and from, even if we don't release information from vendor that could doing APM, all the stuff, or AWS or cloud provider, how many people are running that. But today it remove and kill a lot of stuff by, if we want to support Express 4. So I'm on my part, and that would be mostly my advice, is let's say 10, 12, above 10, let's say, to be nicely. I would agree for 14, but at least above 10. We are not working on breaking and removing stuff that make Express 5 working with Node.js 4. But for me, it shouldn't be a target. If not, we'll be in 2029, we'll still be working with Node.js 4 for everyone. And you will have, oh, but it's not working on Lambda. Yeah, Lambda doesn't support that for the past 10 years. Or Docker images is not up to date and everything. So for me, if we actively support something that will be Node 4, it will bring a lot of strain on top of people. Like if on Express 4, some in Express 5, someone bring us, oh, it's not working with my Node.js 4.6. Are we fixing their issue? What is it? What if they are using Express 4 that is using OpenSSL 1, something that is a security issue? Are we trying to provide a fix for them? Like it will be a big hassle, like just to handle on a community level.
I fully agree with that. I'm wondering, is there something we could do to get a little bit ahead? Because my worry about dropping is not that it's not the right thing to do. Like, I think these people are running insecure code, and that's dangerous, right? We recognize that by being on such old versions. You can't force people, and so the messaging is really important, right? You need the carrot, not the stick, usually, for these kind of things. So I'm just wondering if there's like, could we work with the foundation to write a big blog post that says, we are about to make a decision. Here are the decision factors. If you and your company depend on this for some reason, we're going to host a working group session specifically to tackle this. We've got, we could put an agenda together. We could do like a little seminar, deep dive kind of deal. And then give people a chance. And if they don't show, then and they come out of the woodwork later, we say, we made this is a community process. We're volunteers. We're all trying to do the best thing here. We had to make a cut, and we made the cut based on, X feedback from the community. And then we could have an alternative, like, or we could even participate here. I know Jordan, and folks are presenting some work on this program they have.
Heroes
Like,
Day.
it's awesome, right? I don't know. It was on the closed session yesterday, and I didn't make it, so I can't comment
It was
too much.
no, yesterday. Yeah.
What was that? Sorry, what was that?
Yesterday was a working session. It was an open session, I think.
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't open?
I think yesterday it was open. Didn't check, but
Didn't want to say anything. Anyway, my point was there's probably options where we could work with specific areas of the ecosystem to fund that work directly. And then we could say, hey, if you show up to fund it, that story changes. But the project itself here has made a cut because we are not funded, right? And we're just doing this out of our, we're volunteers. So like, we can't support X version. And then we could even use like the package maintenance working groups, old support document specification or something. We don't, necessarily need to use that, but put some document out there with like a really hardline thing that says, unless you are a paying customer of this new program we've set up for giving, deprecated version LTS support, we don't support it. And that could be the way we sort of bridge the gap for it and fund the work at the same time. Anyway, an option. Ulysses, sorry, John. Response.
I was just sorry in 5 seconds. Do we know if NPM store or get the information about the version of Node.js you use when you are running NPM install? Because if they have it, we could know how many people are using NPM Node.js 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 when they download Express, and it would give us.
They do know that, and they've reported on it in TSC calls before. So I'm pretty sure we could ask. This would be a great follow up. We can ask them to get some metrics around it too. Yeah,
I can look on the OpenJS Slack, and I will get back to you.
A small note from my side. I will say, like, aside of Express itself, version 4 lifetime expand with some kind of a sponsorship community and so on. There's going to be also some related stuff around the libraries, like, for example, cookies and so on, that might change as the browser's APIs evolve over the time. So that's going to be another tricky thing that we need to include in that plan. So it's going to be like not only security releases, but also some kind of minimal compatibility with modern as soon as stuff changes. Aside of that, I think we need to provide some kind of migration tooling probably to the people. So I was discussing with David Welch. He was in the first TC meeting time ago. And he has a great idea, which was like, what about if we use some kind of tooling, like, for example, a slint migration kind of thing? So basically just scan out your previous code, and if you still have some references to stuff that we deprecated and something like that, it can tell you like, look, you have this bunch of warnings. Because the problem from my experience with many projects is like, you have super legacy projects running in a super legacy version of Node.js together with Express that nobody really want to go on. And if you provide at least a linter or something, that can be a good option. But yeah, I don't think anybody's expecting Express 4 to just not be supported in the future. I mean, I was starting to talking with some companies and stuff, and they were like, we don't have this ever imagine that's going to happen. So that's going to be, nobody's expecting that. So it's going to be challenging. Even if we say like 2 years, 3 years, a lot of people cannot make it. But yeah, we need to find a sustainable plan over the time because there's no other way. So maybe we can have a super, more version, how it's going to deprecate and so on for the new versions of Express. But for the 4, I think we need to stick with that with some big plan for the future.
Okay, so we're getting close on. Oh, Chris, you did. Sorry, I think you lowered your hand and side.
Probably everything has already been said, but yeah, like you can have a 5-year deprecation period. You can invite people to come and talk about their requirements, but like there's a huge subset of people that aren't going to feed into aren't going to give you any input, and it's only going to be when you've dropped support for something, and now there's a security vulnerability. And now they're going to come knocking at your door after you've tried to do everything right and give them all the opportunities. And, and then you've got entire classes of people. So many of these downloads are going to be non-production things, right? Like there might be Express used in a critical path, but it's like in a test environment or something where they don't have a strict requirement to upgrade for security. So they don't have incentive to run NPM update. They're not going to because they just not where they're going to want to spend their time, and it's not broken. and the thing's working, or the only person that knew the system got laid off 5 years ago, right? Because like you're talking about Node 4. Node 4 is from like what, nearly 10 years ago that was released, right? So we're really like talking like some serious archaeology technologically in some of these cases. So I totally agree like the need for some of this stuff into plan, but like don't don't overdo it too much because you're never going to completely solve for this issue.
I love that sentiment because I think that's totally true. I think what we want is a paper trail and like a level of like, we are, we did the right thing and we're doing our best here. If you want more than that, here's some options for more than that. And those should definitely not be relying on all of us in this room who are freely giving our time to do that. It should be a partnership with the people who are asking for it. So what I really want out of that is us to have a documented, we went through all the right steps that you would expect out of responsible open source maintainers. We came to the conclusion that we cannot support Express 4 for more than X amount of time and Express 5 for more than X amount of time as our stepping stones. Those are our two stepping stones to get, well, the Express 4 is not the stepping stone. Express 5 is the stepping stone to get to unblocking future development. And I just want to be able to say, when that person comes out of the woodwork and is annoyed that we broke them, I want to be able to say, without a lot of fanfare, here's the doc, go read it. We spent a bunch of time, hopefully not a bunch, but enough time to hopefully have a path for them. And then it should have a link to, if we decide to do the hero dev thing for end of life support, or we decide we could do something else, whatever, we think is best. But it should be very explicitly a well-paid contract, right? Not just us like doing it out of the goodness of our heart for these things. And that's really all I want. So when I say go through a process, it's more just to like evangelize that bit. Oh yeah, go ahead, John. You're muted.
Crap. Yeah, sorry, thanks. I was just even thinking here out loud. Like Express is used for an HTTP, basically HTTP server and REST API. Would it be easier to provide a specific middleware that would bridge between Express 5 and Express 4 and 5 and say to people, oh, are you using Express 4 and you cannot really upgrade? Use this middleware, you move to Express 5, use this middleware on top, and it should handle 95, 99% of your use case, and still allow us to deprecate 4 and 5 or something like, like trying to build a specific bridge to help them and say, oh, we will be compliant to 16, but if you run Express 5 with not 4, use that on top and it should work.
Yeah, I think feasibly, like from a like strictly technology standpoint, I think there's probably a bunch of things we could do to do that. In my experience, and I would love to pick the brains of some Fastify folks, just embedding some of the old behaviors into a new app doesn't really help and can cause a new set of problems, right? So they ship an Express compatibility layer. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that, but to help bridge some of the gap for people migrating. I haven't heard them very happy about the outcomes that has enabled, even though they still support it. So next steps where, we got limited time. Maybe the next step on that part of it, maybe we could you open an issue just to like see if we could come up with some ideas there? Because like there's like, it's also a trade-off. Would we invest in lint rules instead? Because maybe for like the 4 to 5 transition, for probably 90% of people, a lint rule that just looks and sees that they're using the dot or the star route, and that just needs to be swapped for the dot star parentheses version. Like that's going to be like probably some 80% of the lift.
So the biggest one will be res.json that will become res.statue.json. This one will be the biggest one, but yeah, that's
either way.
like,
yeah.
That could be even a CLI that would do it almost automatically. Like should be good.
A lint rule could do it with a fix, right? So it's like there's a trade-off there. Which one would we invest in? obviously if somebody in the community wanted to do them, like that is ideal. So if anybody's watching and is really passionate about, writing some migration tooling, I think there's a call to action. We'd love to discuss. Because we're kind of at time. Technically, we had a bunch of other items, and Linus, I saw, welcome. I don't know if you wanted to, did you want to like introduce yourself? Because I know we had a meeting, and I don't know if you know everybody. And
yeah, sure. Sorry, I just am I joining an hour late or am I? Because yeah, I think I have the time zone off, so that's why I'm very late in that case.
Time zone change
Yeah,
in the
so
US, but not in Europe yet. So yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah, that's why. Yeah, so sorry,
is
sorry
it
for
because of? Can I ask? Was it because maybe US just did daylight
Yes,
saving time?
in Europe we
Time
are
zone.
doing it in the 27th.
I'm very
Yeah, 'cause-
sorry. I did not copy and paste the thing. I just manually edited. I didn't even know it was daylight savings time this weekend when I did that. It is entirely my fault. I'm sorry, friends.
yeah. No worries at all. Yes, but I can introduce myself quickly, anyways. Yeah, apologize for joining late. I am Linus, and I've been working in Express mostly on the Multer package for multi-part uploading. Yeah, I am quite active in open source in general, and I started working on the Multer, I think, quite many years ago now, and then I did participate in the previous Express TC meetings before we kind of went on a long break. So I'm happy to join in now again. I've been off I've been having a lot of things off work with work the last month, so that's why I haven't been super up to date with everything. I think I've missed 2 meetings so far. But hopefully from now on, I should be able to attend more regularly.
Awesome. And Blake, see Blake joined too. So this is Blake. I was just apologizing. I messed up. I didn't know it was daylight savings time, and I adjusted the time without copying and pasting the link from the website that gives us these little markdown tables. So the time in the issue was wrong, but so the calendar invite that I was going off of trying to adapt is what I was looking at. So I would, if y'all haven't added the OpenJS Foundation calendar, might be helpful so that if I screw up, somebody can call me. Because I also saw, and this is probably what caused it, I saw John said that the issue's body, date, and times are accurate. So I was like, oh, cool. Somebody else fact checked my time zone and like, it's good. But it was not clearly. So I think probably the folks who made the original time were mostly folks who do some of the foundation stuff and had the calendar and went off that, not my horrible mistake in the issue. So I apologize for that. Now that I'm realizing it, because we just kind of realized that, I think I'm wondering, do folks want to just go long so that we can continue? We talked about some security stuff, which Ulysses has been leading. We did talk a little, like what we were just finishing up with was the LTS stuff. So that's literally the first 2 items on the agenda that we had talked about. So I'm wondering if the folks who have been here, are you all right going a bit long? Yeah. I see Ulysses kind of, okay. I feel like we should go long because of my mistake. So I'm wouldn't want to cut now. But if everybody's good, then should we, well, let me do a quick little recap. Well, we won't go back to the threat model stuff, but we can, okay, we'll try to go quick. I'll try to do a quick recap of the LTS part so that we're all on the same page, and then we can continue the agenda from there. And I'm betting any money now that Rand will also show up in a half an hour, because Rand also said I'll be able to make the second half. So I'll just we'll keep on keeping on and figure out from there. And if people need to drop, don't feel bad. It's totally, well, blame me, and then we'll do better in the future. Okay, so the recap of the LTS thing, we have a doc that landed in the discussions repo. We're going to move it over to the admin repo. There's been a bunch of doc changes. They're kind of all over the place. We talked a little bit about so we're going to consolidate just on the admin repo for now, for most of the for the governance stuff, which would include the LTS strategy. We thought we would use the .github for the code of conduct, the contributing. Those will move out of the Express repo, which will reduce noise and consolidate some stuff, because there's even in the Express repo, there's duplicate docs and stuff. So that's going to move over. And then we wanted to do an iterative, just quickly land things on this LTS strategy doc. So what we were talking about was things that we might want to land. The obvious most important one is what we're doing for V5, so that we can have a nailed down plan for that. And whether or not we want to keep, right now the branch still supports node 4. Does that seem like a good idea? We talked a little bit about sort of what we could do, and I think this is where we were landing on a fairly conclusive point, was we should do some effort initially. Maybe it's part of the LTS strategy doc thing or whatever, but that makes it clear why we're cutting off support for the certain versions. We'll have to draw a line somewhere, and then hopefully open a door to some other opportunity if there are, because Chris made a point that basically no matter what we do, there's going to be somebody who comes out. Okay, see you, Lucy's. Who's going to come out of the woodwork after we break them, right? No matter how much work we do to document why we're doing it and what we're doing, somebody's not going to read it, and they're going to come out after later and say, hey, y'all broke me. I can't upgrade. What should I do? And so the idea was maybe we could do some outreach. We could work with the foundation. There is a proposal right now to the foundation for a partnership on funding long-term old version support. So maybe we'll be able to leverage that. They presented it yesterday on a CPC call. I was not able to make it. John, you were on the call. Was there a conclusion from that?
So I was checking if I saw the meeting, so maybe it was private, I don't remember. No, it's still in discussion.
Okay. So there's options, but the general thing I think was we should not support Express v4 for 3 years for free. That's not winning any of us anything. It's going to be, more pain. But if there's a way to fund the work, then I think maybe we could figure out something. So I think that was kind of where we left off. That was what we got to in that conversation. I don't know if anybody has thoughts on that.
So I will maybe add, because Blake, you joined us, and hello everyone new. I think it would be also good to have this topic on if we are supporting an old Node.js version for Express 5, it means also putting strain on contributor like Blake. You have most of your library, I think, that move up to Node.js 10 and above. So if there is an issue one day, we Express 5, we update to Express 5. And so we cannot use your latest version. We use maybe V4 or V5 of your tool, whereas you are now in V7. Are we putting strain on Blake to handle that? Are we moving everything up to the same level? We hope someone will pay for it to maintain. My main point is that I don't want other people to have to maintain their deprecated version because we choose to move to something that they already deprecated.
Yeah, thanks for the call out. I mean, I'm happy to support Express supports. I still support 0.1, which is used on version 4 today. So that's not a huge problem. I did have that slight concern on the LTS strategy of having like 3 or 4 versions where I'd be supporting because of the Express LTS having a dependency, and like, I don't know, we're depending on our release schedule for Express and like how much back support there is. But that I don't think would be a huge problem. I can also just like reduce the version on path to regex. Like I mostly tried to make sure that like major versions, the min version was like whatever was LTS on Node. And I was like, why would I support something that no longer is supported?
So if we did move forward with something similar, I mean, I think you were in most of the discussion, so I'm just going to assume you like it's a long thread, so I don't want to rehash. But if we move forward with something generally looking like what is in that doc with some minor changes, that would mean we would have 4 for probably the next year ish. We would add 5 as soon as we can possibly release it. And then we would have 5 for, this is where we have to decide what the actual dates will look like. But a year minimum, possibly 2 if we get a lot of pushback from people. I don't know who's going to push back. I mean, we're all on the call. If we all decide something, like that's the direction of the project, so maybe it's not the big deal. But if people come out when we say we're going to break it and everybody's like, no, we'll do the work, then like maybe we can have a team of people whose literal only position in the project is to like help fix bugs on those old versions and help with path to regex. But there's also like 20 other packages that Doug's been the only person committing on in 10 years. So like I went in and assigned myself as repo captain on a few, and I'm following all the things there, but that's not everything that Doug was doing. So we probably need other people to do that role across those, especially if we're going to commit to multiple major version support. Like that's not something easily done. So I guess there's another call to action to anybody, on the call or listening. If you are interested in helping manage any of these particular repos that haven't, that are a little smaller in scope, but are critical or shipped with Express, like we need your help. So, but long story short, the point is, if we commit to that, we are committing everybody here and to maintain these at least 2, possibly 3 major versions as we make this transition out of dormancy. In the long run, the doc even says there would only be 2 at any given time, 2 majors. To me, that seems maintainable, but the problem is getting over that hump right now with Express 4 being stagnant for so long and Express 5 being the stepping stone version. It will be very unlikely that we will not be making high critical security vulnerability patches on Express 4 packages for a few more years. And so that means that we're signing up for at least some level of 3 major version support at once. Is everybody kind of all right with that? Or is that like a big red flag and people would be like very opposed? And John, I'll hand it off to you. I don't know if there's a direct response or.
No, not on this one, mostly on version planning. So let's keep with you like on this point for are we agreeing on that, and then I can come back to version support.
I mean, I maintain so little. I feel like I could not really comment here, but I'm okay with that with my one package.
So before we validate then that, my main point was here we are taking a decision on supporting Node 4 up to Node 4 because we don't want to break the ecosystem too much. Which then bring the question, when we will release Express 6, are we going to follow the same discussion as of today? Oh, we are using Node 4, so we cannot move above Node 10, which like I'm not seeing us planning to release Express 6 this year. So at best it would be 2025, which would be Express 22 being LTS back in a year. And we will be discussing about, are we okay to have the lowest version be not Node 10 or maybe 12? So we will have 10 version then. So it means that what? Express 8 will maybe be close to 2 versions of the current Node.js major, which means like we'll never be following what's part of that. And there is also some issue like I don't remember. Oh no, Express is completely outside. So I was thinking of yeah.
So this is my thinking. I think that 5 is the exception. And what we should set in the document and the policy going forward is that when we land 6, it is only supporting the most recent node LTSs and above. And by committing to the schedule and the policy, we'll never get ourselves back in this problem. That's the goal. The problem here is when it stagnates, it is very hard to get unstagnated. Once you're in the process of doing it, then things flow more smoothly, right? But like the very first release is hard, and it's the one where we're going to get the most people coming out of the woodwork and saying, how did you break me? This has been stable for 5 years. So my goal personally, and I think even Jean, when we sat down and wrote that doc originally, I think we even had a little discussion about this, and we put Express 6, one of the line items under the Express 6 thing was like commit to the LTS strategy. To me, it feels like we should just say that today. Like this should be, we should hardline Express 6 will only support LTS latest at the time of release.
Good. This one is good on my side, but then we need to, so let's say commit today or like close, and it should be written in the Express 5 release and documentation that you can use it using Node 4 or Node 6, but you should update your Node version because the next one will be a hard breaking change on Node version that is supported. So you have that time for us, basically, you have the full time of us building Express 6 to update everything you have.
Yeah, that to me seems like a pretty solid strategy, and it gives them the stepping stone, and we're not blocking people, unduly, but like we're also not committing to the worry that you had, which is that we land Express 6 and have this exact same conversation. Like, let's stop. I don't want to have that conversation ever again if we can help
me neither.
Like, let's move the project forward is the goal. So I can edit. So if this all sounds good, I can take all this and put it into a doc form. I'll move the doc over to the admin repo. I'll tag everybody on it, and then I'll make the edits that commit to a bunch of these things. And then the next step from there is, I think, deciding on what we're doing for V5. Is it node 4, which is the current branch, or do we want to go? Because I thought we were trying to get to ESM, right? That's the one thing where if we can get to a node version that supports ESM,
which
we
would be
unblock library updates, right?
And ESM is way above 10.
The only thing that I would add to that conversation is I would like at least Node 6. Like Node 4 supports practically 0 ES 2015 features, which is what I was just double checking because I can't remember which version was ES 2015. So I actually, going back to what I said before, like I think if we're doing Node 4, I probably wouldn't backport stuff, but Node 6 seems reasonable.
I think Node 6. Oh, go ahead.
So I was going, do we want to say, so I will send a message to Luke or some of the people at NPM just to give us the number of people that download Express based on Node version. Maybe it can help to say, oh, we are okay to this level or not this level, like at least officially supported version.
Yeah, I like that. So I think next steps there would be reach out. Jean, do you want to do that? Because I think you had something else you wanted to reach out to Luke. Okay, cool. So
yeah. I want to reach out to that and another topic I've noted somewhere, but yeah. Okay,
it might be Miles who gets you that. I think Miles is the one who has presented that data in past things, but
okay, Luke, yeah, I can check with Miles. Yeah, that's okay.
So the idea would be we just get the data to back it up. We document that data a little bit and we just call it node 6 for Express 5. Again, we'll have to like do a little bit of legwork to make that happen. I think we had to open a PR that like deletes node 4 from the CI/CD, and we'll have to like do that across all the packages or something. But we can do that. So I'll open an issue. I'll move the things over, and while I'm doing it, I will add another PR that has a V5 section and a V6 section, and I'll outline these specific callouts. And then we can add the data. Like once we get the data from NPM, we can put that in the doc just to make sure it's, you know, easily accessible. And then I think that wraps that up, right? I think that's the last remaining thing. So now between the threat model and the security working group and the LTS strategy, I think we had said those were the only two things we had to do before we could figure out what we were going to do to release Express 5, right? Was there any other, does anybody have any other remaining like big ticket things that needed to happen before we could consider cutting the Express 5 release?
What version? I mean, we can take this offline, but what version of path to regex did you want to be using? And then there's at least one feature I need to add back, I think, depending on what version you're using.
I think we would look to your recommendation.
Okay.
I don't have a strong opinion. I mean, I did a PR like 8 years ago or something silly to upgrade it in the V2 router. And then like I noticed a few years ago that somebody else did that whole thing again, and it had like 80 comments on it. Mine had 80 comments. I was like, this is a horrible process. Let's not do that again. So anything we can do to not have an 80 comment thread where we go back and forth and then have to do it again in 3 years is sign me up. So whatever you think is best.
Okay, I'll write up a recommendation and post it to discussions or something.
Okay, so that is a requirement. Are there any others? Like, what are the other, like that to me is probably the biggest ticket item. Because then once we do that, we'll have to land the, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, it's been years, so I'm not up to date on what the router status is. Did we land everything promise-based into the router?
We landed most. So actually that might be, oh, we should maybe have added that to the agenda. I forgot about that one. There's a couple of things that didn't land around some of the error handling stuff, if I recall correctly. I'm not super prepared to address that on the call. I think I would need to update my memory there. Maybe we should, we could do this offline, and then I'll go through that and get it. I mean, I've been testing with, I just been like, as I've been onboarding myself back into the project, like been just testing out all sorts of stuff with 5 just to get the lay of it. And I think it was like, it's not exactly an edge case, but it was like not the happy path. And if you fell off there, it still wasn't quite ideal. So like maybe that's an all right compromise depending on the amount of work. But I remember there being a PR open trying to take the more like hard like support tasks on. I just think it never got. It might even be good. I don't know. Because sometimes there were things where like I think Doug had questions, but he was bouncing too many things, and it's like we could have just said, yeah, that's a good compromise. Let's ship it. But instead of actually getting merged, it just wallowed and sat there for years. So it's possible that that's the status. Because I just remember there being a PR where I was like, I think we should try to land that one, and it was just an error handling case. So yeah, but I can follow up offline with that one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it'd be great to sync later on that maybe, and then I can help land that as well. I don't know, it's been like a decade since I looked at promises in Express, but would love to help.
Cool. I would love to, if you're up for it, if you want to nominate yourself as a repo or whatever project captain for that one. When I did that original doc, I tried to codify only the like current status, and then I PR'd myself in to just add a few because I mean, again, I don't know what Doug's interest is going forward on doing some of the more like tactical, like contribution work, but he does, I think want to, probably not be doing some of the leadership stuff. So I don't want to make any assumptions on what he wants to do, but if he is not there to help out with some of these repos, we need other people to volunteer, because it will be just me doing the same thing that Doug was doing, which is like responding and then not noticing the issue for a while. So I would love more people's names in there. But yeah, if we could, I think the router is the sort of key link that we need to like wrap everything up around, and then update in the V5 branch before it goes out. Because I think pretty much everything else is just less user impacting. Jean, oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Like, no, that was just on topic on. So if we say, and we'll say that Express 5 is a new version number, do we also want to go through each packages to bump them as a major version before we release Express 5, just to also update them with, they only support Node 4 or 6 or whatever version we choose. So it means that we'll have to go through each packages, find each dependency order to update them in the right way, maybe fix some stuff. Yeah.
I think most of them have branches open that already do that.
Okay,
there
I
are
didn't check all of
that
them.
maybe didn't need changes, but like the router, for example, has a 2.x branch, which is not merged yet. That was supposed to do that.
Yes, but for example, the router one, they got new commit in the branch, the V1 branch, that are not part of the V2 branch.
That's a mistake, I think.
Because the latest update of V2 was 2 years ago, whereas the V1 was 1 year ago. So I didn't check every changes and every stuff, but I think some part may be missing. So we'll have to go through each packages.
That sounds like either oversight or something sort of just weird, because the Express mainline does not even depend on the router package. So like, I guess maybe some users maybe skip the bundled router and install the other package. But people weren't porting, nobody was porting PRs to Express 4's router over to the standalone router package V1, as far as I remember. There was a bunch of things that changed in the router in the Express bundled, like V4 version, that never got over, I don't think. Do we need to do that? Actually, I'm wondering now.
Like, so I was just checking the first one I saw is a compression package that is like use. We could there is only one branch, the master branch. So and the last update was 2 years ago. So I don't know if there is some change that need to happen there or not, but I think we will need to go through each packages to see if something is missing or not.
Yeah, I think you're right. So maybe what we need is a small checklist that just says like, well, we would go through for every package for like for V5 compat or something. Does that, and then maybe we can track that in the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think we'll just need to discuss what we want to do. I guess we can update packages, at least keeping the same major version, update the engine version that is 0.8 currently on most of the packages to V4 or V5 or something, and go through everything. And I guess, yeah, that would be the main point.
And then with that, I think we need to probably do a standard approach to that across all the repos, just so it's not like hellishly complicated to figure out what's going on in each of them, because we're going to have 2 major versions permanently of most of these packages. So like Ulysses was making a document to update, or made updates to the release process document. And then I think he had an open PR that was trying to make like a whole more like robust revamp of it. See, Chris, that seems like that should be part of the checklist, right? Is that like we figure out what that process, I don't know. Do you like, Blake and Linus, do you follow a particular release workflow And if so, is it similar to what Doug was doing for V4?
So for the motor, we only really have we have the V1, and then we have a V2, which I've been publishing I think .alpha releases for a while, but I haven't really been able to work on it or put that much more work on it in the last few years. So it's kind of been sitting there for quite a while. And I think I need to go back at it again and see how many people that uses it, because I think the main thing for me was that I stopped using it for work, and then it was kind of hard to gather some feedback on the changes, if they were good or not, or if it was breaking people's workflow. So that's why I never really committed to doing the release, and then it just kind of dragged out on time. So for that package, I don't really have like a good release strategy at all, because we basically been at that 1.0 for a really long time.
Also, like remembering from the PR that was opened by Ulysses, we had a discussion about, do we want to do it manually or leverage now GitHub release process, which is like, especially if you want to maintain multiple major version on package, because it will be packages and Express and everything. Like for me, I would prefer, and also if we give like permission for people to release that repo captain and everything, I would be safer, I would say, for everyone to be able to release a version just clicking on release, putting the right tag, clicking on generate release content, and done. That would be way better than you have to, like, the same process from Node.js is great for Node.js, but it's Node.js, not a simple package.
Yeah, I felt like that proposal was a little bit more, than we necessarily needed. I think the critical thing we need to maintain is the secure access control. So that means required two-factor auth for every publish. And that is not possible purely with a CI-based, GitHub Action solution today, unless you are running some third-party stuff like Wombat Dressing Room, or there's this like company that provides a thing. So if we're going to pursue that, probably what we would want to do is get the bundle ready, but then run the publish locally with some level of thing. Unless we want to set up Wombat Dressing Room, but that's like an operations task, and like that feels harder to do to me than just to like we can CI/CD everything up until the last step, right? Generate the release on GitHub with release please or something, and then all you would have to do is download that release. Like literally you could just click the tarball download link, unpack it, and run npm publish, and then it would two-factor auth flow you.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, we probably don't want to hash this out on the call today. We probably need to like go in that PR, right? But and like make comments. But I'm a little bit, that PR is a little bit beefy for like proper commenting. I think you have to we probably need to like run a workflow on a package first and just see how we like it too. Like I'm using release please. I don't know if anybody else is familiar with it, and it's great. I mean, that is fully automated, but that doesn't allow for the two-factor auth because it's publishing from GitHub Actions. So like I do that for my personal things, but I'm a little bit looser on security than I think this project can be, right? Like we have the keys to power, like to breaking the entire ecosystem and making everybody very mad or very insecure. And so we should be very careful about not introducing a process that could be easily engineered into a security nightmare. Right, which a publish from CI is today. Like we have admins on the repos who are not involved in the project. So like if we're going to do repo CI publish, we have to start getting really strict about kind configuring those things, right? Which means I already went through and removed all the admins, I think, that were not TC members, but like there's people still with push ability on tons of these things, and I don't think they've touched them in years. So we'd have to go and pull out our really like by the book sort of process hats and go and like police it, which I think is not super ideal.
So around
Yes.
So I think there's a way now. So not using the two-factor authentication, like it's not possible on CI. Technically, it could be possible, but it's like magic stuff. But now you can limit or ask specific people to validate a specific action on GitHub. So technically, you could put Express TC member plus repo captain for each of one, saying that every part of the action can run, or I don't remember if it's a step or action or workflow, but can be blocked until someone go to actually action tab and click run or validate or something like that, which it's not a true two-factor authentication, true, but it would be someone that is able to run the action plus someone else that is able to validate. So, but I do agree with you, two-factor would be great.
If we had two people on every project who wanted to volunteer and each one required two, that is two-factor auth in reality, right? We're talking two humans who agreed that that it's ready. Like that is probably satisfactory. But it is not the, two-factor token. So we would, I guess the requirements there is we would make a scoped access token for every package. We would load that in as a GitHub secret. And then we would assign two people, two separate roles. One who's allowed to create releases, and one who has to approve the PR that generates the release. Is that right?
Yeah. And I think you can have two people that need to approve for an action. I'm working on that internally, so I don't have the issue with two-factor authentication, but I can check that and try an example repository to see what we can do.
Seems like we need to move this into an issue though, right? Like this just needs to be, we need to like nail this down in an async.
I would open a discussion, like an issue in discussion.
I'm worried that this might take a while to sort out. And the more things we do like this, the longer we're going to block V5. Can we get started in parallel? Could we like open the issue and then just like repo captains would be responsible for making sure that the release happens today or, right now with the loose process just to get us to the V5 state. And then we could work on this and get agreement. And then that would be like, we would just slowly get more and more repos on board with the process once we establish it. Like, is that an all right compromise?
No, like this one would be easy. Like we can even use release today to have someone click on release, but not being able to publish. It will generate, like you say, the tar archive and the zip archive. And someone that has the right can just click on download it, and npm publish your zip file, done.
I'm down with that. That to me it's a pretty good balance. Like the problem is we don't want a timeline with the Express V5 timeline. Just let's do anything we can to not extend it even longer, right? And like as much as I think you're right, we need to publish all those libraries with probably the next major version. Putting extra process in there seems ill-advised. It seems like it's just going to drag it on. Okay, if that's... Oh, what's this?
So it was just a link to your old PR part of Node about two-factor authentication. I saw
2019, and it is still not resolved. I actually just had a big, long conversation in the OpenJS Slack with some folks like Daniel from Bloomberg.
Yeah,
and like a bunch of other people who were talking about it. And Miles was in there, and I was like, Miles, listen to me. Give us two-factor auth built into GitHub Actions for npm publish, please. But it hasn't happened yet. So.
Like technically, and we are going a bit off road there, there would be an easy way for them to do it. They can just add the same setup on action that would trigger a notification on your phone, like when you want to add a team or a member somewhere, and it's done. That would be great.
If they could just make it so that to run the action, They put the little two-factor UI just like you have in front of, like, if you go to change certain settings in the GitHub UI.
Yeah, like adding
it pops
collaborator
the little thing. They could literally reuse the same workflow there and just make it so that you could say require two-factor auth for this action run, and then it would solve our problems. And then we would be safe.
So next action, we want to be hired by GitHub/Microsoft for the next 2 weeks just to create this feature, have the PR being merged and done.
I wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we have next steps on that then? Do we want to?
I will open the discussion, an issue in the discussion. Yep.
Okay, and then the idea is we need to go through. We need to just use this inventory to make a quick checklist of things that have to be done on every repo. Okay, so